Welcome back to Energyscapes, Ocean and Space. Today I thought we'd have a conversation about two people in particular that did some work that was very interesting, probably nearly 20 years ago now they were working on it, and that's Douglas Torr and Dr Ning Li. You'll recognise them in this photo, which you can get off the internet, with the disc in front of them that created a anti-gravity effect. So you can find that photo on the internet. Now, Douglas Torr worked with Dr Ning Li and collaborated with her at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, so over 20 years ago, and they were supposedly working on a gravity generator. And according to a leaked document from the Office of Technology Transfer at the University of South Carolina, which was confirmed by Wired magazine back in 1998, they plan to patent and license this disk device, or gravity generator as they called it. Apparently, some of the aspects of it included having a couple of electrodes that produced an inhomogeneous electric field when they were charged with a voltage potential to generate a gravitational effect. So the electric field of the charged sphere was radial and therefore spherically symmetric, and produced a gravitational field with spherical symmetry. So depending on the sign of the charged sphere would generate this gravitational force that would either attract or repel massive objects. So in doing this research, they found that a time-dependent electric field will produce a time-dependent propagation of a gravitational field away from the source at the speed of light with each cycle reversal. And of course, what happens, the first electrode would be a portion of a sphere, a cone, or a cylinder, and the second electrode would be attached to and related to the sphere, cone, or cylinder as well, and they could be hollow. So that's what they were doing back then. Then I dug up an article about Dr Ning Li and her work on this disc from Popular Mechanics in October 2000, and that was called Taming Gravity. So I'll just highlight a few things from that and then cross-reference it with a couple of books that relate to it. Now, Popular Mechanics visited Huntsville, Alabama, and its laboratory to have a look at the proof of concept of this disc that Dr Ning Li was working on. They called it a force field machine, all right? And when complete, you could literally place a bowling ball above it and let go, and it would hold its position and be repelled by this disc. Now, of course, physicists define gravity as an attractive force between two masses, and as one of the four forces, the other two being the strong and weak nuclear force, and of course the electromagnetic force. So when we go back to, for example, if we go back to 1911, way back then, so over 100 years ago, we had a guy called Edward Farrow. Now, he looked at weight-reducing devices and called them condensing cylinders, which probably were just giant electromagnetics. But they were still interested in what the effect of gravity was, or how to control gravity, even back then, even though they quite didn't understand the concept and what they were looking at. But if you jump forward and back into the early 2000s, you even had people like BAE Systems and their Project Green Glow looking at gravity, or the quest for control of gravity. So it's been around for a long time, and we can go back way before then, right back to World War II with all this sort of stuff. So Dr Ning Li's work, there is an Einstein connection there as well. Just pulling information from this article from Popular Mechanics. The disc that was fabricated by Dr Ning Li, that was back in the 1980s, and so she predicted that, for example, a time-varying magnetic field, if it were applied to a superconductor, the ions trapped in a lattice structure would absorb enormous amounts of energy, all right, and therefore generate rapid spin and, of course, a small gravitational field. It's also useful to think of something called an unusual state of matter called the Bose-Einstein condensate, right, which is a state of matter that's generated in the lab under experimental conditions. And it's where atoms are all aligned in the same way, and they behave as if they're a single atom. So you by orders of magnitude expand the gravitational effect of just one atom into billions and billions of times. So that's what this disk was that Dr. Ning Li had. The disk actually made that happen. So billions of atoms acted as one, producing this gravitational field that had an observable effect in repelling, for example, the bowling ball. So we've got to remember, of course, that this disk wasn't modifying gravity. It was producing a gravity-like effect that was either attractive or repulsive, right? So Dr. Ning Li explained that as the ions spin, they create this gravito-electric field that's perpendicular to the spin axis, and that's what was happening in her disk. Okay, and the larger the disk, the greater the force field it produced, and supposedly it could be controllable. All right, so you could think, for example, you could think of UFOs when you talk about this, and the supposed disk shape or saucer shape UFOs having such a device as part of their propulsion system. And we can go back to for example, Otis Carr's work on his disk and what he was looking at doing with propulsion systems, and the plans and schematics for his saucer-shaped disk, or even back to, for example, Victor Schauberger during and after World War II and his saucer-shaped disk and implosion technology in that as well, in generating a anti-gravity effect or gravitational field that cancelled or reduced mass significantly enough to travel at absolutely enormous speeds through physical space. And then, of course, you've got people like David Childress going back and looking at the SS secret program that supposedly worked with flying saucer disks as well, and developed that technology during and after World War II outside of Nazi Germany. So there's a whole history there about all this. And we can even go back to more of the theory behind it, about whether gravity is attractive and repulsive, or a gravity-like effect that can be produced that is either attractive or repulsive, to people like Andrew Thomas and his works Hidden in Plain Sight, book 1, The Link Between Relativity and Quantum Mechanics, and his book 2, The Equation of the Universe. Now, he discusses the fact that it can be proven that gravity is both attractive and repulsive, and looks at the theory and its application around why that is so, and looks at things like Hawking radiation, event horizons and black holes, and ripping apart matter, and talks about why gravity is both repulsive and attractive. So there's quite some good cross references there with Dr. Ning Li's work. Now, what happened to Dr. Ning Li is curious as well. And I've got a statement here that I found and downloaded. So what happened to her in anti-gravity research? And the quote here from her is, "I've collected all the measurement data for my equations. If we take mass and rotate it very rapidly, we can generate gravity. We can increase gravity. We can weaken it. We can steer it in any direction. I have the theory. I will publish it. I have all the mathematical equations. I will explain it. I will think my theory is mature. I will tell the world. Anti-gravity is nothing to laugh about. I think the experiments of Dr. Podlektonov, I think that's how you pronounce it, have shown the anti-gravity effect is crystal clear. It's too important and belongs to all American people." Now, she disappeared back in the early 2000s, and people couldn't contact her anymore. And so, the head scientist at the University of Alabama, Larry Smalley, also died back then as well. So what happened? Where did the research go? And what happened to Ning Li? She did form a company called AC Gravity LLC and got a grant from the US Department of Defense to pursue her research, so we know that much. And we also know that she sent a private email to colleagues in May 2003, because I have a copy of that here, which I've got hold of as well. And there was a reply to that from the Department of Defense that she was working for them and therefore not permitted to discuss her work openly anymore. So it leaves it with a bit of a mystery there as to what happened to her work and her technology that she had supposedly proven actually worked with this disk and its repulsive gravity-like effect. So I'll leave it at that for now. It's another puzzle, or a piece of the puzzle in quite a big puzzle on propellant propulsion systems, disk technology, gravito-electric effects. So get on the comments if you're interested, have a look and let me know what you think.